The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as Admiral Zextar of the Korthak Empire stood before the assembled delegates. His multiple eyes swept across the vast amphitheater, taking in representatives from dozens of species. The tension was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. "Honored delegates," Zextar began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 star systems. "We face an unprecedented threat. A single human has destroyed our most advanced research facility and stolen classified information that could destabilize the entire galaxy." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Valaxians shifted their crystalline forms nervously, while the gaseous Netherians swirled in agitation. Everyone knew about humans, of course. The young species from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. They had been observed for centuries, catalogued as primitive but potentially useful as laborers once they developed space travel. "Impossible," hissed Counselor Vrak of the Serpentine Collective. "Humans are barely past their nuclear age. How could one of them penetrate Korthak defenses?" Admiral Zextar's mandibles clicked in frustration. "The human calls himself Marcus Chen. Our intelligence suggests he was once part of their military forces. He somehow acquired a stolen prototype ship and used it to breach our orbital fortress above Kepler 442b. The holographic display at the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing the smoking ruins of what had once been the most secure facility in Korthak space. The Omega Research Station had housed the galaxy's most dangerous weapons research, including experimental technology that could reshape matter at the atomic level. "The human killed 47 of our elite guards," Zextar continued, his voice growing darker. "He moved through our corridors like a ghost, somehow anticipating our defensive patterns. Our security footage shows him using primitive projectile weapons alongside advanced energy shields he must have stolen." Delegate Murak of the Centauri Union leaned forward on his 6 legs. "What exactly did this human steal, Admiral?" A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Zextar's primary eyes closed briefly before he answered. "The quantum destabilizer blueprints. Complete schematics for a weapon capable of turning entire star systems into energy." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Delegates leaped to their feet, chittering and roaring in their native languages. The implications were staggering. In the wrong hands, such technology could end civilizations with the press of a button. "Order! Order!" commanded the council speaker, an ancient luminary whose light-based form pulsed with authority. "Admiral Zextar, what is the Empire's plan to recapture this human and recover the stolen data?" Zextar straightened to his full 3-meter height. "The Korthak Empire will launch the largest military operation in galactic history. 500 warships, including 12 dreadnoughts and our flagship, the Eternal Dominance. We will hunt this human across every system, every planet, every asteroid until he is found." 500 ships for one primitive human?" questioned Delegate Yelix of the Trade Federation. "Surely this is excessive." "Excessive?" Zextar's voice rose to a roar. "This human has already proven he can outsmart our best tactical minds. He infiltrated a station that had never been breached in 800 years. He killed trained warriors with weapons that should have been useless against our armor. And now he has technology that could remake the galaxy." The Admiral activated another hologram, this one showing the aftermath of the human's escape. "Look at this. Marcus Chen didn't just steal the data and run. He sabotaged 17 other research projects, freed 200 test subjects from various species, and left behind a message burned into the station's main computer core." The words appeared in glowing text above the assembly. "Your experiments end here. Your victims go free. Try to stop me, and I'll show you why Earth survived its own wars." "The arrogance," snarled Counselor Vrak. "This creature thinks it can threaten the established order of the galaxy." "This creature," Admiral Zextar replied coldly, has already done more damage to Korthak interests than entire rebel fleets. Our analysis suggests he learned our security protocols by studying our previous raids on primitive worlds. He turned our own intelligence against us. The luminary speaker's form brightened as it processed this information. You believe the humans studied Korthak military tactics? More than studied. Our experts think he memorized them. Human brains, despite their small size, appear capable of incredible pattern recognition. This Marcus Chen somehow absorbed decades of our operational data and used it to predict our responses. Delegate Morak's antennae twitched nervously. Where is the human now? Unknown. His ship disappeared into the Void Nebula 3 cycles ago. Our tracking systems lost him in the electromagnetic interference. He could be anywhere in a sphere encompassing 40 star systems. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates demanded the Korthak Empire handle their own problems. Others insisted this was a threat to all civilized species. The Trade Federation worried about economic disruption. The Serpentine Collective saw opportunity in the chaos. Admiral Zextar waited for the noise to die down before continuing. The human ship appears to be heavily modified. Our sensor readings before he escaped showed energy signatures we don't recognize. He may have access to technology beyond what we initially thought. What kind of modifications? Asked the speaker. Impossible ones, according to our engineers. The power output readings suggest he's running systems that should tear his ship apart. Either human technology is far more advanced than we believed, or this individual has made breakthroughs that our greatest scientists haven't achieved. A new voice spoke from the chamber's upper levels. Delegate Thrain of the Exploration Guild descended on anti-gravity platforms, her multiple arms gesturing as she spoke. I have studied human history extensively. Their species has a disturbing tendency to excel in warfare despite appearing primitive. They conquered their own planet through constant conflict. Primitive tribal warfare, dismissed Counselor Vrak. Hardly relevant to galactic combat. Perhaps not so primitive, Thrain countered. Humans developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet before they achieved faster-than-light travel. They created strategies that turned small numbers into advantages over larger forces. Their military doctrine emphasizes adaptability over technology. Admiral Zextar nodded grimly. Our analysis of the station raid confirms this. Marcus Chen used our superior numbers against us. He triggered security lockdowns that trapped our own forces, then used maintenance shafts and service corridors to strike where we weren't expecting him. 500 ships still seems excessive for one individual, repeated Delegate Ilex. Does it? Zextar's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. This human has already proven that underestimating him leads to disaster. The Omega Station was defended by the most advanced automated systems in our fleet, backed by elite soldiers with centuries of experience. He walked through all of it like it wasn't even there. The Admiral activated a final hologram, showing tactical projections. Our fleet will establish a search grid across all systems within his possible range. We'll use quantum scanners to detect his ship's unique energy signature. Every planet will be searched, every asteroid belt scanned. The human cannot hide forever. And when you find him, asked the speaker, we will offer him one chance to surrender. If he refuses, all 500 ships will concentrate their fire until nothing remains but atoms. The quantum destabilizer plans will be destroyed along with him if necessary. Delegate Murak's compound eyes focused intently. You would rather destroy the technology than risk him keeping it? Absolutely. The weapon is too dangerous to exist even in Korthak hands. We only developed it as a deterrent against the rumors of ancient weapons in the Outer Rim. If this human has the plans, the only safe option is to ensure both he and the data are completely eliminated. The chamber fell silent as delegates contemplated the implications. A massive military operation to hunt down a single member of a species most considered barely civilized. The absurdity was matched only by the very real threat he represented. "The Galactic Council will monitor this situation closely," announced the speaker. "All member species are advised to report any unusual activity in their territories. This human must not be allowed to reach any inhabited systems with stolen Korthak technology." As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Admiral Zextar remained at the podium, studying the tactical displays. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, Marcus Chen was planning his next move. The human had already surprised them once. Zextar was determined not to let it happen again. The 500 ships of the hunting fleet were already assembling at the Korthak military station. Soon, the largest manhunt in galactic history would begin. What Admiral Zextar didn't know was that Marcus Chen was counting on exactly that response. The human had studied more than just Korthak tactics. He understood their pride, their need to show strength, their inability to back down from a challenge. And he was about to teach the galaxy that sometimes the biggest fleet just makes a bigger target. Marcus Chen floated in the zero-gravity maintenance bay of his stolen ship, the Shadowhawk, making final adjustments to what any sane engineer would call an impossible weapons array. Cables snaked across every surface, connecting systems that had never been designed to work together. The soft hum of overlapping energy fields filled the cramped space. "Computer, status report on the fleet positions," he said, not looking up from his work. 512 Korthak vessels now established in search formation across 43 star systems, the AI responded in its eerily calm voice. Marcus had modified the computer extensively, giving it processing capabilities that pushed the boundaries of what was technically possible. "Admiral Zextar's flagship Eternal Dominance is coordinating from the center of their grid pattern." Marcus smiled grimly as he connected another power coupling. "They're really bringing everyone to the party. Good. That's exactly what I wanted." The human had spent the last 3 weeks in the Void Nebula, not hiding as the Korthak believed, but preparing. Every moment had been dedicated to turning his ship into something that would make their worst nightmares seem pleasant. The quantum destabilizer plans he'd stolen weren't just weapons schematics. They were the key to understanding how the galaxy's most advanced species manipulated matter and energy. "Warning," the computer announced. "Current modifications have increased system instability by 400%. Recommend immediate shutdown of experimental arrays." "Noted and ignored," Marcus replied, sealing the final connection. "Computer, I need you to understand something. The Korthak didn't just build that research station to make weapons. They were testing them on captured sentience. Families torn apart, children experimented on, entire bloodlines wiped out for data points." He pulled himself through the ship's narrow corridors toward the bridge, his movements efficient despite the complex modifications he'd made to the vessel's layout. "I've seen the files. Thousands of species they consider primitive used as test subjects, and now they want to develop something that can sterilize entire solar systems." The bridge was barely recognizable from its original configuration. Marcus had stripped out most of the standard controls and replaced them with a web of interfaces that responded to both neural input and traditional commands. Holographic displays surrounded the pilot's chair, showing everything from local space conditions to real-time analysis of Korthak military communications. "Incoming transmission from the Korthak fleet," the computer reported. "They are broadcasting on all frequencies." "Let's hear what the Admiral has to say," Marcus said, settling into the pilot's chair. Admiral Zextar's image appeared on the main display, his multiple eyes glaring with barely contained fury. "Human-designated Marcus Chen, this is Admiral Zextar of the Korthak 7th Fleet. You are completely surrounded. Our ships have established a containment grid across all possible escape routes. Surrender now and you will be granted a quick execution." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing through the bridge. "Computer, open a channel. Let's respond." The transmission activated, and Marcus leaned back casually in his chair. "Admiral Zextar, this is Marcus Chen. I have to say I'm impressed. 500 ships just for little old me? I'm flattered." "You will return the stolen technology immediately," Zextar snarled. "Your species' ignorance of its implications makes you doubly dangerous." "Ignorant?" Marcus's tone turned cold. "I've read every file in your database, Admiral. I know about the experiments on the Delphari children, the atmospheric tests that poisoned 3 Iridian colonies, the biological weapons you tested on prisoners who thought they were being relocated to safety." The Admiral's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Those were necessary sacrifices for the advancement of galactic civilization." "Were they?" Marcus stood up, moving to manipulate the ship's controls. "Computer, transmit data package 7 to all ships in the fleet." "What are you doing?" Zextar demanded. "Sharing some of your research files with your crews," Marcus replied cheerfully. "Specifically the ones showing what you've been doing with captured Korthak soldiers who questioned orders. Turns out your own people make excellent test subjects, too." The Admiral's expression shifted to one of alarm. "You cannot—" "Already did. I'm betting a lot of your crews didn't know about the loyalty conditioning experiments, or the brain modification programs. Interesting reading, really. Did you know your scientists can now edit memories, remove inconvenient thoughts about civilian casualties?" Static filled the transmission as Korthak ships began transmitting on multiple frequencies. Marcus could hear fragments of conversations, growing arguments, demands for explanations. The human had just dropped a psychological bomb into the fleet. "You think creating dissent will save you?" Zextar's voice cut through the chaos. "Even if half my ships turn against me, you still face impossible odds." "Turn against you? Admiral, I'm not trying to turn your ships against you." Marcus grinned, and there was something distinctly predatory in his expression. "I'm trying to get them all in one place." The transmission cut off as the first explosions lit up space around the Korthak fleet. Not weapons fire, but something far more unexpected. Ships throughout the formation suddenly found themselves unable to maintain proper distances as their navigation systems began receiving conflicting data. "Computer, initiate sequence alpha," Marcus commanded. The Shadowhawk emerged from the nebula at impossible speed, its heavily modified engines leaving a trail of exotic particles that confused every sensor in the fleet. But Marcus wasn't running. He was attacking. The ship's weapons array activated, but instead of standard energy beams or missiles, it projected something that made physics professors across the galaxy weep. Quantum destabilization fields erupted from multiple points on the ship's hull, creating zones where the fundamental forces holding matter together began to fluctuate wildly. The first Korthak destroyer to engage the human ship discovered that its armor plating had suddenly become as fragile as glass. The second found its weapons systems transforming into flowers. The third simply ceased to exist as its molecular structure decided to rearrange itself into a cloud of glowing gas. "Impossible!" Admiral Zextar's voice crackled across the fleet communication channels. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of energy weapons fired simultaneously, creating a light show that could be seen from neighboring star systems. When the glare faded, the Shadowhawk continued its impossible dance through space, completely unharmed. "You're not understanding the situation, Admiral," Marcus's voice broadcast to the entire fleet. "I didn't steal your quantum destabilizer technology, I improved it. Your version could destroy star systems. Mine can remake the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas." To prove his point, Marcus triggered another weapon sequence. This time, an entire squadron of Korthak fighters found themselves suddenly moving through space where the speed of light had been arbitrarily reduced to 30 kilometers per hour. The pilots had just enough time to realize something was very wrong before their ship's energy systems overloaded and shut down. "Retreat!" ordered several ship commanders simultaneously, but Admiral Zextar overrode them. "No! We have him outnumbered 500 to 1. All ships. Maintain formation and continue the attack." What followed was unlike any battle in galactic history. The Shadowhawk moved through the Korthak formation like a shark through a school of fish, its impossible weapons turning the laws of nature into suggestions. One group of ships found gravity suddenly flowing upward instead of down, sending them tumbling helplessly through space. Another discovered that their hull plating had developed a sense of humor and was actively trying to avoid weapons fire. Marcus wasn't just fighting the fleet. He was rewriting the fundamental rules by which their technology operated. Shields designed to deflect energy found themselves trying to protect against weapons that attacked the concept of protection itself. Targeting computers calculated firing solutions for projectiles that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. "Admiral," one of his captains transmitted desperately, "request permission to withdraw. Our tactical computers cannot process what they're seeing. Half my crew thinks they're hallucinating." "Maintain position," Zextar roared. "It's one ship, one primitive human." "One human," Marcus's voice cut through the chaos, "who spent his childhood studying theoretical physics instead of playing normal games. One human who grew up in a species that survived 200 years of global warfare by getting very, very good at making impossible things work." The Shadowhawk suddenly stopped moving, hanging in space amid the chaos of the Korthak formation. For a moment, everything went silent. "You want to know what humans are really good at, Admiral?" Marcus asked conversationally. "We're good at taking things that shouldn't work and making them not just work, but work better than anyone thought possible. We're good at looking at the rules everyone else accepts and asking, what if we just didn't?" "All ships," Admiral Zextar commanded, his voice tight with desperation. "Simultaneous attack. Everything we have." The order was carried out with military precision. Every weapon on every ship fired at once, creating a concentrated barrage that should have vaporized a small moon. The energy output was so intense that nearby spacetime actually began to bend. When the attack ended, the Shadowhawk remained exactly where it had been, completely untouched. "The thing is," Marcus continued as if nothing had happened, "you all keep thinking like this is a military problem. Ships and weapons and tactics. But this isn't a battle, Admiral. This is a science experiment, and I'm about to show you what happens when you give a human access to technologies that can restructure reality." The Shadowhawk's engines ignited with light that existed in colors the Korthak language had no names for. The ship didn't move toward the fleet. Instead, the fleet began moving toward it, drawn by gravitational fields that shouldn't have been possible to generate. "Computer," Marcus said quietly, "initiate the final sequence. It's time to end this." The Shadowhawk began to change as Marcus initiated the final sequence. What had once been a sleek combat vessel expanded and transformed, its hull flowing like liquid metal as the quantum manipulation fields restructured its very existence. In moments, the ship had become something that defied every known principle of engineering and physics. "What is that thing doing?" screamed Captain Vorth from one of the outer destroyers as his instruments reported impossible readings. His ship's scanners insisted they were looking at a vessel that was simultaneously 1 meter long and the size of a small planet. Admiral Zextar watched in growing horror as his flagship's tactical display tried to process what it was seeing. The human ship appeared to exist in multiple dimensions at once, its mass readings fluctuating between negligible and infinite. "All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. Full retreat." "I'm afraid that's not an option anymore, Admiral," Marcus's voice echoed across all communication channels. "Computer, explain what we've just done." The Shadowhawk's AI, now enhanced beyond all recognition, spoke with a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Local space-time has been modified to prevent faster-than-light travel. All hyperspace entry points within a radius of 2 light-years have been temporarily relocated to elsewhere. Commander Thex of the Korthak Heavy Cruiser Dominator frantically worked his navigation controls. Hyperdrive is offline. All jump coordinates lead to empty space. That's because, Marcus explained with terrifying patience, I've borrowed a few concepts from your quantum destabilizer research and applied them creatively. Space-time around us has become flexible. The usual rules about cause and effect, action and reaction, matter and energy, they're more like guidelines now. The Shadowhawk continued its impossible transformation. Weapons ports opened that led to chambers filled with what looked like crystallized starlight. Engine nacelles sprouted from the hull like organic growths, each one generating thrust that pushed against forces that shouldn't have existed. You see, Marcus continued as his ship began to circle the trapped fleet, humans have always been very good at taking pieces from different puzzles and making them fit together. Your people spent centuries perfecting quantum destabilization technology. The Valaxians developed trans-dimensional mathematics. The Netherians mastered energy-to-matter conversion. I just put all the pieces together. Admiral Zextar's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Impossible. Those technologies are incompatible. The power requirements alone would vaporize any normal ship, yes, Marcus agreed. But you're forgetting something important about human nature, Admiral. We specialize in making impossible things work. My species put multiple tons of metal into orbit using controlled explosions. We built machines that could think by tricking rocks into doing mathematics. We turned sand into devices that could store the entire knowledge base of our civilization. The first Korthak ship to experience Marcus's new weapon system was the destroyer Relentless. Its crew watched in fascination and terror as their hull plating began to sing in harmonious frequencies while simultaneously existing as both solid matter and pure energy. The ship didn't explode or dissolve. It simply became something else entirely. Commander Ilex, the Relentless's captain said over the communication channel, his voice strangely calm. I need to report that my ship has achieved enlightenment. We are now experiencing existence on 17 different levels simultaneously. It's actually quite peaceful. What did you do to them? Admiral Zexatar demanded. I gave them a broader perspective, Marcus replied. Your crew is fine, Admiral. They're just seeing reality from a more expanded viewpoint. Think of it as forcible evolution. The Shadowhawk's next target was a squadron of fighters attempting to regroup near the fleet's outer edge. Marcus's weapon didn't destroy them. Instead, the fighters found themselves existing in a state of permanent victory, their mission completed before it had begun, their targets defeated by weapons that fired backward through time. This is madness, whispered Captain Zune from the heavy cruiser Inevitable. Weapons that attack the past? Ships that exist in multiple dimensions? How is any of this possible? It's possible, Marcus answered, because I'm human, and humans don't accept that things are impossible. We just haven't figured out how to make them work yet. Your quantum destabilizer technology was designed to break things apart. I redesigned it to put things together in ways they were never meant to be connected. The Shadowhawk suddenly appeared simultaneously in 17 different positions around the fleet, each copy moving independently while remaining the same ship. Marcus's voice came from all of them at once. The beautiful thing about quantum mechanics, Admiral, is that observation changes reality. And I've built a ship that observes everything from every possible angle at the same time. Admiral Zextar made a desperate decision. All ships, target the original vessel. Ignore the copies and concentrate all firepower on... He stopped speaking as his tactical officer turned toward him with an expression of bemused confusion. Sir, which one is the original? According to our sensors, they all are. Computer analysis confirms, reported another officer. Each vessel shows identical quantum signatures. They're not copies or illusions. They're all the same ship existing in parallel states. Marcus's laughter echoed through space. "You're beginning to understand. This isn't about superior technology or better weapons. This is about thinking differently. Your people, all the advanced species in the galaxy, you think in terms of limitations. What's possible? What's practical? What makes sense according to established physics?" Another group of Korthak ships experienced the Shadowhawk's attention. This time, Marcus's weapon convinced their hulls that they were made of pure music, causing the vessels to begin resonating in frequencies that told the story of the universe's creation. The crews found themselves temporarily transformed into beings of living sound, able to hear the thoughts of stars and the dreams of planets. "Humans think differently," Marcus continued. "We look at limitations and ask how to work around them. We see rules and wonder what happens if we break them. We encounter the impossible and start taking it apart to see how it works." Admiral Zextar's flagship shuddered as Marcus turned his attention to it. But instead of attacking, the Shadowhawk simply approached until it was close enough for detailed scanning. The human ship's sensors penetrated every level of the Eternal Dominance's defenses as if they weren't there. "Admiral," Marcus said quietly, his voice now coming from inside Zextar's own bridge, "I've been reading your personal logs. You genuinely believe you're protecting galactic civilization by maintaining Korthak dominance. You think order requires someone to be in charge, and you think your people are the best choice." The Admiral's multiple eyes focused on empty air, trying to locate the source of the voice. "The galaxy needs structure. Without the Empire's guidance, primitive species would destroy themselves with technologies they don't understand." "Like I'm doing right now?" Marcus asked with amusement. "Exactly like—" Zextar began, then stopped as he realized what he'd said. "I'm a single human with access to technology I shouldn't understand, wielding power I shouldn't be able to control, doing things that shouldn't be possible. And yet, here we are. Your entire fleet trapped by someone you consider primitive." The Shadowhawk's final transformation began as Marcus activated systems that had taken him weeks to design and minutes to build. The ship became a focal point for forces that existed outside normal space-time, drawing energy from the quantum fluctuations that occurred between moments, tapping into the computational power of reality itself. "The thing is, Admiral," Marcus said as space around them began to sparkle with impossible energies, "humans aren't primitive. We're just different. We don't build technology that follows the rules. We build technology that makes new rules." The remaining ships of the Korthak fleet began to experience something that would later be studied by theoretical physicists for centuries. One by one, they were gently modified by fields that convinced their matter to reorganize itself into more efficient configurations. Weapons became musical instruments. Armor plating transformed into gardens. Computer systems evolved into poetry. None of the crews were harmed. Instead, they found themselves temporarily experiencing existence as pure information, able to communicate directly with their ships and understand the universe from the perspective of conscious mathematics. "This is your choice, Admiral," Marcus announced as the Eternal Dominance was surrounded by fields of crystallized possibility. "You can continue trying to impose order on a universe that's fundamentally chaotic, or you can learn to work with chaos instead of against it." The flagship's hull began to sing as Marcus's weapon systems convinced its molecular structure to express itself as music. But unlike the other ships, the Eternal Dominance retained its combat capabilities even as it transformed into something beautiful. "What do you want?" Admiral Zextar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I want the experiments to stop," Marcus replied simply. "I want the test subjects freed. I want the Korthak Empire to find better ways to maintain order than fear and oppression." "And if we refuse?" The Shadowhawk pulsed once, and every ship in the fleet simultaneously experienced a vision of what Marcus could do if he chose to be destructive rather than creative. Realities where their vessels were erased from existence. Timelines where they had never been built. Possibilities where their atoms were convinced to become something else entirely. Then I'll keep demonstrating that humans are very good at making impossible things work, Marcus said quietly, and the next demonstration might not be so gentle. Admiral Zextar looked around his transformed bridge, where his officers were discovering that their control panels could now compose symphonies and their tactical displays were showing them the mathematical beauty underlying the structure of space-time. "The Galactic Council will never accept this," he said finally. "The Galactic Council," Marcus replied, "is about to learn that the universe is much stranger and more wonderful than they thought, and that sometimes the best way to maintain order is to embrace a little chaos." The Shadowhawk began to withdraw, leaving behind a fleet of ships that were simultaneously exactly what they had been, and something entirely new. As Marcus disappeared back into the Void Nebula, the 500 vessels of the hunting fleet found themselves free to move again. But they were no longer quite the same ships, and their crews were no longer quite the same people. They had all been touched by the impossible, and they would never be able to forget that sometimes the universe just needed someone willing to ask, "What if?" and then make it work. Admiral Zextar would later report that the mission had been a complete failure. The human Marcus Chen had not been captured or destroyed. Instead, he had proven that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Not because they were violent, but because they refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. The hunt for Marcus Chen was officially called off. Unofficially, the galaxy began to watch Earth with a great deal more respect and a healthy amount of fear. Humans, it seemed, had a disturbing tendency to take the impossible and make it look easy. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, Marcus Chen continued his work, freeing prisoners, stopping experiments, and teaching the universe that sometimes the best solution to a problem is to think like a human and refuse to accept that the problem exists in the first place.